Cool.
Let me take a sip. I always do.
I've got my coffee right here. This is my comfort zone.
I got my tea. Oh,
Cool.
and don't look into that light. If that light hits you.
I did. I already done. I know.
Yeah.
I'm seeing spots, but
Yeah, so now
I'll
we
be
see
fine.
spots. So now's a great time to start because we're seeing spots. Hello everyone, this is Jason, Executive Director of Jason's Heart, and today we have Chris Allende from Wellbeing Initiative. So I wanted to, I've worked with Chris for a long time. I started working with you about 3 years ago when you were at Centerpoint.
That's correct.
And I still to this day have nightmares of that laptop.
That laptop. Yes.
I think what would happen is if you had it shut and it went to sleep and it wasn't on power, then it wouldn't turn on.
Yep.
And then I'd have to come down, unscrew the back, just unplug the battery, plug it back in, put it back on, and I think I did that 3 times in like 1 month.
And that was the second thing that happened, because if you remember before that, you had to put like an expanded drive because it just wasn't, well, it was, I guess, old and just didn't have the memory that it needed. So what did you call this? A solid state, I think is what you called it, a solid state drive.
Yeah, the old hard drive was, well, this is a very old system, but, you know, working in nonprofits, you know, we take what we get.
Absolutely.
And so a lot of times we do work with the older equipment, but anything we can do to help speed that up, that's what we're going to do. So if we can throw a solid state drive and that gives that system 3 more years, I still see it. I saw a system on a desk in the main office, and they wanted us to kind of go through them, and I saw that system. I'm like, I wonder if this is Chris's. So your name is always associated with that laptop style.
Great, I guess.
No, that's a good thing. Anyway, it's a beautiful fall day out there. It's quite chilly.
It is.
It's quite chilly. But, you know, definitely I wanted to bring you in and kind of talk about some of the things that you guys are doing at Wellbeing Initiative. You guys are a fairly new company that just started up.
There's some history there, which I can explain. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
So I'm going to start from the beginning. I'll introduce myself and then talk a little bit about Wellbeing Initiative. So my name is Chris Allende. I am a peer. I'm in recovery. Been on this journey now for a little over, well, I was going to say a little over 16 years, but it's actually been about 17 years. The 5th of December will be 17 years that I've been on my recovery journey. I won't bore you with all those details because the story is long, but basically born and raised in Miami, Florida, went up to Hartford, Connecticut to get sober. Then they sent me to Central America, where I lived for 8 years, started up a faith-based recovery program for men with substance use issues. Then, long story short, came here to Lincoln, took a hiatus from behavioral health for a couple of years, and then about 5 years ago, got back in the behavioral health peer under this concept, which to me was brand new. I had never heard of this concept before, but under this concept of peer support. At first, when people would ask me, Chris, what do you do for a living? And I would tell them peer support, and they would ask me, what is that? I struggled to explain it. It took me about probably 4 to 6 months to be able to explain what I actually did. So been doing that for a while, and about 2 years ago, I came over to the Wellbeing Initiative. And the Wellbeing Initiative is actually not a new organization, but it's been reborn, if you will. It's been around, and I may not be doing this justice, but probably somewhere in the realm of 6 or so, maybe even 8 years. But about 4 years, I'm going to say 2, about 3 to 4 years ago, it underwent a rebirth, if you will. And new leadership took over. Danielle Smith and Sadie Thompson took the reins of the organization and have just done a fabulous job growing the org. We have our hands in a lot of different things. When I came on board 2 years ago, I was the 4th employee, and right now we have 11 employees, and we're currently hiring for, if I'm not mistaken, 4 more positions. So that's exponential growth in a short amount of time. Now we do a lot of different things. Do you want me to get into that?
Will in a second.
Okay.
I apologize about saying you guys were new.
Oh, no, you're fine.
I started at Summer Group coming up on 4 years here in February.
Okay.
And, I hadn't really known about Wellbeing Initiative. Once, when you left where you were at and you went there, that's where I first started hearing about it. And since then, I've been hearing so much more. So you guys are really getting the word out about what you're doing.
Agreed.
And like you said, with the expansion, I know some of the people who have gone over there. Jennifer, I haven't spoke with her in a long time, so I'm going to give a shout out to Jennifer. I need to give you a call. It was always nice. That's the one thing that I love about what I do is being able to go out there and speak with, whether it be a client that I'm just talking to, whether it be, Jennifer, who is in a peer support position, whether it be with anyone who I talk to. I just for that 5 minutes, it takes me away and it puts me into where they're at that day, and it really puts a different perspective on that. Really kind of shapes how I've been this last 4 years, really getting into the nonprofit. So I've noticed that with your group, how much more I'm hearing about it and seeing the things that you're doing. Go ahead and talk about some of the things that you guys do, if you would, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, just to highlight and reemphasize what we were just saying right now, under the leadership of Danielle and Sadie, they've done a tremendous job of really getting us plugged in and a seat at the table, if you will, in the realm of behavioral health, particularly as it relates to peer work. So the Wellbeing Initiative is a peer-run organization. And a lot of you out there might know what that means, but for the benefit of those that don't, it basically means that we all have lived experience with mental health and or substance use challenges. So like I mentioned previously, I am in recovery. I've been in recovery for, like I said, about 17 years from substance use, but also with some mental health sprinkled in there as well. We are a peer run, so everybody that works for the organization is a peer, and that is the world in which we function. We do a lot of work in that world. Our main bread and butter for a long time was the peer support training. So we have one of 3 state certified curriculums where individuals can become state certified peer support specialists, and that is a 60-hour training with 20 of those hours being self-paced online, and then the 40 additional hours being face-to-face, whether in person or in the world in which we're living on Zoom. That's one of our programs. We have a lot of other trainings that we provide, specialized trainings, things like provider trainings for organizations that are looking to implement and sustain peer support services. We have forensic peer support, which is a specialization of peer support for individuals that are working within justice-involved systems, whether it's in closed facilities like the mental health hospitals or incarceration, and anywhere along that continuum. So that's another one of the things. Basically, most of what we do falls within the realm of training, education, and advocacy work. We also, for example, my role is paid for in part by Region 5 Systems. So in case the audience doesn't know what that is, Nebraska is divided into 6 behavioral health care regions that basically are overseeing, they're like a quasi-governmental hub basically for behavioral health services, and our state is divided into 6 of them. Each one of these regions has what's called a regional consumer specialist, which is an individual whose job it is to represent the interests of behavioral health consumers at that regional level, so on a systems level. My position is paid for in part by Region 5 Systems to do just that, to represent the interest and the voice and to increase consumer involvement. Additionally, we just opened up what we're calling the WEC, which is the Wellness and Education Center, which is super cool. It's going to be a space to have groups. It's going to be a space to have trainings. It'll be a space where we'll be able to do different classes, provide education. One of our staff is a wellness coach, and she's going to be starting yoga classes there, for example. So really looking forward to that. That's going to be an awesome multifunctional space where we're hoping really to get the community involved in it, particularly peers and peer supports, as a means of developing natural supports and connections within the community. You know, they say that the opposite of addiction is connection. And that's one of the things that we really want to foster in that space, is a place for connections.
That is amazing. If I may,
Yes.
You're talking about peer support. What is it about peer support that works so well for the client, and then also for you? Because it does. I'm just going to say this. If you're helping someone, not only are you giving them help, but you're receiving help yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
If that question works.
Yeah, most definitely. So, that's a big question, and for me, what I would say is that it's an innovative approach to support. It's an innovative approach within the behavioral health system to be able to walk alongside somebody else. Having been an individual that was involved in the behavioral health care system myself for many years, one of the things that I noticed is that my treatment, if you will, was never really up to me. It was professionals telling me, Chris, this is what you need to do. Chris, this is what's worked for this person. Try this. What I think is different about peer support is that it's empowering, in that it really is up to you to decide what is best for you. It's up to you to decide what pathway to recovery do you want to explore, because there are many pathways to recovery to explore. It's also really unique in that having somebody who has had a similar experience to you provides hope. It provides the thought that, well, if Jason has been able to make it, maybe I can make it. A lot of other professions within the behavioral health care field, self-disclosure is not really a thing. Your therapist, for the most part, doesn't really self-disclose. Case managers, for the most part, don't really self-disclose. It's not within their ethics and guidelines. Whereas for a peer support, it's pretty much the central basis of what we do, is we connect with others based on our lived experience. So that in itself provides hope. Somebody who is going to hold you to unconditional high regard and offer you the dignity of taking risk in your life and making decisions for yourself, even though those decisions may not, or they may work out well, but are willing to stand alongside you through that journey and that process. Having somebody who isn't going to judge you along the way, but again is going to be there irregardless to support you in the decisions, and somebody who is also going to be able to speak from experience and be like, I'm not telling you what to do, Jason, but I was in a similar experience, and this is what I did, and it turned out well for me. It offers options, it offers choices, which is something that I personally for a long time did not have. So those are a couple of the highlights that for me really make peer support stand out.
Yeah, no, that was a great answer, and the fact that a person who's going through a journey has people around that are walking with them help make that journey so much better in many ways. There's more options, the choices. A lot of people who have had recovery issues, incarceration issues, because sometimes those do go hand in hand, they lose a lot of their freedoms. They lose a lot of rights to be able to have choices. And then upon release and re-entering society, it's hard because you just got bombarded with all these options and choices. And sometimes the ones that you really need, like employment, housing, and stuff, are limited. And that makes it easier to take a wrong choice. Yeah. And so by having someone walking with you and having someone who's been there before giving you that advice, but yet not, allowing that person to grow and make their own choice, really, I can see where that works out so well.
Yeah, you're making me think of so one of the other things that we do at the Wellbeing Initiative is we have these positions called recovery community navigators, and when you're talking about what you're saying right now, it really makes me think of a navigator, because for example, these folks which work on a program called OPI, Overdose Prevention and Intervention, which works with individuals who have recently overdosed or are at risk of overdosing, just as justice involved individuals, having somebody who is there with you to be able to navigate the system is so helpful, because a friend of mine told me this, and I remember it very clearly. He said, Chris, you don't know what you don't know. And there's so much truth in that. You don't know what you don't know. So being able to have somebody walk alongside you who has been in a similar place, who has walked this path before, offering you some, not necessarily guidance, but offering you options, offering you possibilities, offering you different pathways. And again, from lived experience, sharing what has worked for them is not only empowering, but it's also, what's the word I'm looking for? It's also, for me at least, comforting, knowing that you're not alone in this, and that you do have somebody that you can lock elbows with and walk along this journey.
That support is so necessary when you're taking journeys.
Yep.
And it's awesome that you guys are doing what you're doing to train more companies to use this feature, not feature, I apologize, but use this way of doing things. So as far as people who, I know that you don't work with people in recovery, directly because of the role you have now, but seeing people who are on that journey that may have, started here, went through the system, got in some treatment, they worked on some, things internally. They come out and they're out looking for the jobs, they're out looking for housing and stuff. We know there's a lot of stigma when it comes out to addictions and incarceration and, mental health itself. What are some things that employers can do to help someone through that transition, or who are, on that journey? Are there things that you can think of that employers can do to help out?
Yeah, so I'm gonna back that question out and kind of walk into it, because there's a couple things that I want to mention. One of the services that I think is really cool that is offered many times on a peer level is something called supportive employment, which is a service, again, many times run by a peer or many times facilitated by a peer, where you're able to walk alongside individuals and many times teach them the skills that are necessary to obtain gainful employment. I know that we at the Wellbeing Initiative have a similar program called WHEST, W-H-E-S-T, which stands for Whole Health Employment Support and Training, where what we do a lot of times is teach people soft skills that they need to be able to be successful in the community. Some folks would say, productive member of society. I'm not a huge fan of that term, but it connects with some people. So things like that. Also partnering with organizations such as yours. I mean, if you're out there and you have an organization or you have a company and you're looking for like IT work, partnering with an organization like Jason's Heart and the Soren Group, truly, who really takes the time to mentor folks, teach them the skills, both professionally, but then also those soft skills of how to show up and how to do those things that some of us take for granted, dress codes, how to manage and work with technology, things like that, I think is huge. So having a supportive employment type person that can walk alongside somebody, giving them the skills, or partnering with organizations such as Jason's Heart, that this is their bread and butter, this is what you guys do. Additionally, as it relates specifically to organizations, that's an interesting question, because my experience has been that you as an HR person, you as a hiring manager or supervisor may not be aware that the individual that you're potentially hiring is somebody who is in recovery or has experience in the behavioral healthcare field. There's a lot of reasons for that. One of the major ones, which you and I have talked about a lot, is stigma. There is a stigma with being a person in recovery. There is a stigma attached to that. People particularly if you're new in your journey or not that far along in your journey, people have questions about that. Like, well, okay, is this going to be beneficial for my bottom line, right? That's what a lot of times organizations and companies end up thinking. But you may be aware, you may have somebody such as myself, who that is a major part of my story, and I am quick to share that, in part because I want to reduce stigma, and I want to show that, yeah, I'm in recovery, and I'm doing well. I'm living my best life. I've been doing this for 17 years, able to make a change in the community, and I want people to know that people in recovery, first of all, are people. We're just humans, like everybody else, right? We're just humans. And not just that, I feel like we have, let me speak for myself, because of the things that I've been through, I have some experiences that might be beneficial to an organization that others may not have because of the choices and the paths that they took. So as it relates to that hiring process, if you are aware, the one thing that comes to my mind, Jason, is flexibility and a willingness for accommodations. We talk about accommodations a lot of times as something that is reasonable, something that, well, in certain contexts is obligatory, right? Organizations have to make certain accommodations based on ADA. And in my mind, having that flexibility or that willingness to make reasonable accommodations for somebody who has expressed that they are in recovery, I think can really benefit the workforce as a whole, in my opinion, and is truly something that could be beneficial to the organization, to the team, and to the individual. And it doesn't have to be, again, reasonable accommodations, right? Maybe somebody, instead of taking an hour lunch break, want to go once a week to their therapist. I think that that's a very reasonable accommodation and is something that could benefit not only the individual, but the work environment and the space, right? As an organization or as a company, saying that you are friendly to recovery. I don't know, what's another accommodation? Maybe this individual is in recovery, not necessarily from drugs and alcohol, but maybe has severe anxiety. And potentially this individual doesn't receive verbal feedback very well. And they're able to vocalize to you and say, hey, I'm not great at vocal feedback. This makes me very nervous. Is there any way, if whenever you have feedback for me, you can send it in an email, for example? I think that that's a very reasonable accommodation that could be made, and it's something that makes the space feel safer, and it feels like it is truly friendly for individuals that are in recovery, those types of accommodations.
Yeah, and that's very important for not only the employees, but for the employer, that it is a welcoming and safe, where someone can feel safe and be themselves and not have to put on a front and this is who I am. That's always a benefit when you can have an environment like that. You will have a lot more understanding, a lot more compassion. You'll get a lot more productivity because people are working better. When there's friction, then it slows things down, no matter what. And so that's good information there. So how is it that people can contact Wellbeing Initiative? You guys have your website, you guys have your social media. What's some ways that, if anyone who's listening has some, information or wants to inquire more about well-being, how do they go about doing that?
Absolutely. And you mentioned kind of the few major points. Our website, which is wellbeinginitiatives.org. So it's with an S at the end, Wellbeing Initiatives. Then we're also on some of the major platforms for social media, things such as Facebook as Wellbeing Initiative, and we're also on Instagram as Wellbeing Initiative. My email, I'll make it readily available for this podcast as well, is my name. It's going to be hard because my last name is complicated. C. Allende. So my first initial, Chris, then my last name, Allende, which is ALLENDE. at winitiative.org. So if anybody wants to email me directly, I'm definitely available for that. There's a lot within the space of peer work that we can be supportive is. TA, I didn't get to share all the things that we do, but technical assistance and offering TA to organizations that are looking to implement this as a service within their continuum and within their repertoire of services is also something that we do. So definitely feel free to reach out.
Okay, well, on the website, it is Wellbeing Initiatives with an S, but everything else is just Wellbeing Initiative.
That's correct.
I do apologize. I did misspell or mispronounce your name.
Oh, you're
earlier.
good.
I'm
used to it.
Chris, I'm saying it in my head so many times. Allende?
So the
double L is a Y.
Y, yes. And then it's Allende.
Allende.
There you go. Perfect.
Okay, I will never miss that again.
Jason, whenever like living here in the Midwest, anytime I call a place and they ask me for my last name, I never even bother saying it. I'll spell it for you. Because that's a thing.
Well, I know with my last name, it's Levine. Sometimes even Matt, who's been working with me for a long time, is Levine. And so, I totally understand that, and there's nothing wrong with that. Was there anything else that you wanted to talk about with Wellbeing Initiative? Because you had mentioned, hey, I didn't get a chance to talk about the TA program. Are there any other things that you want to speak about with Wellbeing?
Well, a couple of areas. I just want to mention a couple of areas of passion for me, and it's some work that we're doing. I did mention I worked in that whole OPI program, which is the Overdose Prevention and Intervention, where we work with individuals that are at risk. That's a really cool program, and it's one of the only direct service programs, if you will, that we offer. So if you have somebody here within the state of Nebraska, at least, that is at risk of overdose or has overdosed, and let me just say, if somebody is using substances, then we can easily say that that person is at risk of an overdose. So if you have a family, loved one, or you are such an individual and you're looking for some support, that's definitely a program that we can offer within the state of Nebraska to walk alongside you in that process of navigating, again, recovery, community, resources. And that referral form is on our website. You would just go under the programs tab, go to OPI, and would be able to find a referral there. Again, self-referrals, professional referrals, family referrals, those are all valid. Transitioning, one of the areas of passion for me, Jason, is something that you had mentioned earlier, and it's for justice-involved individuals, folks that have been incarcerated or are currently incarcerated. One of the things that I'm quite proud of is the work that I've been able to get going within community or county jails, in the southeast corridor of the state. Interestingly enough, and this could be a rabbit trail in and of itself, so let me know. But one of the things, or one of the roles that I have within my position, is to kind of keep a finger on the pulse of the community, to see what our community needs within the behavioral health care system, and then develop action plans to meet those needs. And last fall, so about a year ago, was hosting some focus groups. And within those focus groups, I hosted 4 of them, of individuals that are involved within the behavioral health care system. A really blatant trend appeared. A really, really blatant trend that just stood out. Without any prompting, the trend just kept coming to the surface. And that was the lack of recovery-oriented programming within county jail systems. So I thought that to be interesting. At that point, basically what I did was I started calling up county jails, Googled phone numbers, Googled names, and was calling the county jails, speaking to jail admins or to sheriffs, and asking 3 very simple questions. And the questions were, what recovery programming do you have in your jail? The second question was, would you like any more? And then the third question was, how can we go about getting that started? Very simple questions, but they led to some really, really profound insights. And one of the insights was that, well, the feedback that I was getting from the community is absolutely correct. There is no, let me say it like this, there is very little in the way of recovery programming in jails. Pre-COVID, you would maybe have like a 12-step program of sorts in the jail. You would maybe have a chaplain of sorts that would come and offer religious counseling. But a lot of that stopped during COVID. And my experience and in my conversations with jail admins and sheriffs is that a lot of it hadn't started back up. So I ended up finding that jails were very receptive to us coming in and offering programming. And that's something that we have since done. As an organization, we are currently in 3 county jails every week, once a week, offering recovery programming, peer support groups, basically. We're doing that. We are working on a 4th jail right now. We are also in the Mental Health Crisis Center here, offering a RAP group, a Wellness Recovery Action Plan group, within the Mental Health Crisis Center here, and really being able to offer supports to individuals that are in restrictive environments, such as incarceration. One of the things that I have noticed, excuse me,
No, you're good.
that was really, really interesting, since I started doing all of this work and started doing some research, calling jails. We've since been invited to like speak at some statewide conferences for jail admins and whatnot. And one of the things that we've noticed is that depending on the jail, on average, and don't quote me, but it's kind of a rough number, but about 85% or so of individuals that are incarcerated are there, especially on a county jail level, are there because of either a mental health or substance use issue. That's a pretty high number. I've had some jails tell me that up to 95% of their inmate, or what I call residents, the residents of their jails, are there because of one of these issues. And I've had others tell me that about 75%. So kind of, averaging it to about 85%. That's staggering, Jason.
That is.
And then in the same breath, not offering services to support folks in making different decisions. Because one of the biggest issues that we have is recidivism. People going in and out. Some jails would call them like frequent flyers.
Yeah.
Going in and out, going in and out. So we were just like, as an organization, well, we got to offer some resources. We got to offer some so that's what one of the things.
I thank you for doing that. That is amazing, that you've seen the need. Without going down a huge rabbit hole, addiction really isn't. It's not a criminal problem. It is 100% health problem, and we as society have not grasped that yet. The recidivism is just outstanding.
Yep.
I believe Matt and I were talking about how, I want to say it's, I can't recall the number, but it's something that we need to look at. And people that are doing programs like you that go in there to help people, you don't know how many people that you reach, where they go after they are done meeting with you.
Yeah.
But just the idea that you could be helping one person makes it worth it.
I'll tell you what, absolutely. So it's happened to me on a couple of occasions, and I go out to rural communities to do these groups. And on one occasion, interestingly enough, I was at my local grocery store. I was at my local, with my son, with my 6-year-old. And there was one person at the grocery store whom I did not recognize, but this individual, it was apple season. So he went to go get an apple, and one fell on him, and he kind of reflected and caught it. And I looked at him like, good reflexes, man, cat-like. And he just kind of laughed and chuckled, but turned pink and walked away, right? I'm that weird guy that makes random comments like that. And like 4 or 5 minutes later, I kept seeing him look at me. So I was like, wonder what that's about. And he came up to me. He's like, hey, so you're Chris, you're the peer support that goes to such and such jail to do recovery groups. I'm like, yeah, do I know you? And he's like, yes, I was in that jail and I went to a few of your groups. And he was like, thank you so much for the work that you're doing. I learned so much in that group. And I've taken some of the things that I've learned, I've applied them in my life, and I'm doing a lot better. I'm here with my dad, living in his home, and things are going well for me. Thank you so much. I was like, that hit you right in the feelers. Somebody who was directly impacted in a positive way by the work that you're doing. It's those types of things which you don't always see.
No.
You don't always see. But when you do, it's important to highlight because, without getting on a soapbox, the work truly does make a difference.
It does. And, I just got chills with you telling that story. That's a great thing to have. I know with working with a lot of the groups I work with, one of the first things I notice is, what you guys do, I'm not capable of doing. And it's very difficult because so many nights you go home and you're like, why do I do what I do? But then you have a story that you just told right there. You had that chance meeting in a grocery store, and I bet you walked out there just going, you know what, this is why I do what I do.
Absolutely.
And I'm happy I'm doing it, and I'm proud. And that next, that just provides that motivation to just try harder and keep thinking, what else can we do to help more people? So with that, I think we've been kind of running on for a while here.
Cool.
I think that was a great place to end with that story. You never know when you do meet someone and you said something or did something that changed their life.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that, I try to do throughout my day is be conscientious about what I'm doing, because not only can that one action or one statement or one look make their day, it can also ruin their day.
Yeah.
So I definitely try to do that, but it's great when you see things like that. So Chris, thank you so much for coming
My absolute pleasure.
You are a rock star. I respect you. I look up to you for what you do, and I'm honored to have you here. So
It's my absolute pleasure, Jason. Thank you so much for the invitation.
Yes.
Also, working alongside you guys and the work that you're doing is a privilege, so thank you as well.
awesome. All right, well, hey, we're done for now. You have a great one.
Take care.